to issue 226 of Critical Encounters, a podcast about Marvel Champions, a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. Here we take a good look at that most critical piece of the game, the encounter sets. We'll discuss those poorly understood characters, unfairly labeled villains, and their various plans to shape humanity and benefit the planet, as well as those so-called heroes intent on thwarting them. I'm one of your loyal minions, Henry, and joining me tonight is Mike, Steve, and Daniel.
Thanks, Henry.
Nicely done.
Yes. Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Well, I don't understand how he was able to even read the intro. How does a minion get to do that?
Well, a minion gets to do that by being a patron to our Patreon, and that's like one of the few folks who has cashed in their reward. So if you are a patron and you want to cash in your reward, we will happily work with you to record a greeting and an outro and, get you on the show. But that's not all for Henry today.
No.
Because Daniel, I guess I just got to ask you straight up so we do it correctly.
Sure,
What's on your mind tonight?
Well, Henry K.
Okay.
The very intro reader. He sent us a little message that is simply beautiful, and I would love to honor Henry by reading it out loud tonight. Here we go. He says, "Hey guys, thanks for giving me the opportunity to contribute a bit to this great podcast. I don't have a ton of time to play or get involved in the community online or in person, so listening to you guys chatter away each week about Morlocks or Mojo TV while I do dishes and fold laundry grants me the opportunity to learn more about the game I love and feel more connected to the players. You all clearly have a genuine friendship and routinely execute your shared vision for this podcast that does, in some truly real, albeit small way, shape humanity and benefit the planet. Thanks for all you've done, are doing, and will do to elevate our experience with Marvel Champions and each other. Truly, Henry." That is beautiful. My goodness.
Yeah, you can't tell, but I'm blushing a little. So
yeah, that was very generous, very kind, Henry. Thank you so much. We do our best. And I think it's for responses like that we keep going.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So cheers.
Fandom is fun. Just chatting about it is, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, like you said last week, right? It's kind of what helps keep the excitement level going. And Henry is he's kind of timely here. He says chatting each week about Morlocks. Oh. It's like he knew, because I think, Mike, we're going to talk about Morlocks tonight, aren't we?
We are. Oh my goodness. I guess this is Morlock something. This is MCM. We're still in our Marauder Champions Monthly set. So what are we on now? We're on the 6th episode talking about mutants and Morlocks and Marauders. We've talked about the Marauder villains and their incarnations in the modular sets. So today we are going to talk about the first scenario in the next evolution box, which is Morlock Siege. And I'm going to give the lore to this.
Oh, awesome.
Is that all right with you guys? We've been kind of dancing around it for the past few episodes. Let's tie this all together, shall we?
Thank you.
Yeah, let's do it.
I've been so confused these past weeks.
Okay, this is all based around a crossover storyline called Mutant Massacre that was published in 1986, starting in Uncanny X-Men number 210, which, if you've been following us over the past month, is where the Marauders first, quote, appear as shadowy figures. Of the Marauders, Malice is the only one actually shown. More on that later. And the rest are introduced in issue 211. So this is an old one, and there's a few differences with the card game version, and some of that might be their differences. Some of it might be that the gradual evolution of the story and the retelling, because we see that happen a lot in the Marvel universe. They don't reboot the whole universe, they just kind of tweak things as they go. So I'm going to go through the story as it was told in 1986, and then briefly take tangents to talk about how the story has been amended later on. Because, Marvel likes to retcon certain details.
And why
in order
not?
to accommodate new storylines, new themes. And this is no exception.
Yeah, and the stories that are being told in our game are not one for one, right? They're new stories. When we did the Rise of Red Skull, that wasn't any specific story. That was something that Caleb and the designers here had decided to do that showed, it held the right themes of Red Skull, and I think we see that a little bit in this one as well. It's there, but not quite.
Yeah, definitely. Because this does not center around Hope Summers, whereas the other one it kind of does. Hey,
in our game it centers
in our
around
game,
Summer.
yeah,
She's like not even born yet in the telling of the Mutant Massacre. So yeah.
Okay. Now the original run begins with a chase.
Ooh.
A man named Richard and a woman named Tommy are running from a group of shadowy figures. Suddenly, Richard is impaled by an energy spear, which paralyzes his nervous system. He falls to the ground, unable to move, and Tommy, fearing for her life, leaves Richard behind and flees. Their pursuers calmly catch up to Richard and execute him in cold blood with a bullet to the head. This is, I can just imagine, I didn't read comics back then. I was really young. I was 5 years old, but I could just imagine people reading this and realizing this is something different. Like, we've joked at length about how nobody really dies in the comics. Not here. This series has a body count, and it's kind of horrifying how violent it gets at times. But I also do like the stakes that are raised when death is real. Continuing on. Tommy is revealed to be a Morlock, which is the term used to describe a community of mutant outcasts that hide in the railway tunnels beneath Manhattan. Her power is that she can flatten herself like a piece of paper, which is how she slips into a train car to escape her pursuers. Now, 11 years later, in Uncanny X-Men number 350, Magneto will chastise the X-Men for their treatment of the Morlocks. And I quote, "You shelter one or two within your precious school and leave hundreds of others to fend for themselves? And how do you choose those you will help? Take the attractive and powerful, leaving the deformed and destitute Morlocks to live beneath the streets of your city, allowing them to ingest the refuse of humanity for decades." Powerful stuff.
So, Mike, are you saying that someone is accusing the heroes of maybe less than moral tactics?
Yes, indeed.
Huh.
Left unsaid was the fact that Magneto was actually headmaster of the school at that point, but details. Magneto, I know, it's kind of weird. Magneto does legitimately care for all mutant kind, though, and there is clearly a class difference here.
Okay, sure, because it is a pretty attractive school.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we look at what the X-Men that go to that school and then the Morlocks, there's a physical difference.
Yep.
All right.
just agreeing with your storytelling, Mike.
You think they'd want a mutant that maybe could fold herself like a piece of paper, but no, apparently not. We'll take the one that goes through walls.
Like Callisto, the queen of the Morlocks, kidnaps Angel because he's the most handsome man in the world or something like that. So there's quite a difference. I don't know if we're going to talk about that tonight, but we talked about it before. So
I guess we are now.
Yep. Okay.
All right. So Tommy sneaks through the tunnels beneath Manhattan after the train kind of arrives through them. And just as she reaches the Morlock hideout, bam! Energy spear to the back. These shadowy figures had let her get away so that she would lead them to the rest of the Morlocks.
Oh.
The leader raises his weapon, shoots Tommy in the head. And with that, slaughter begins. Issue 211 opens by introducing us to the Marauders. Their leader, Scalp Hunter, later renamed Grey Crow after Marvel's writers go through cultural sensitivity training, along with Riptide, Scrambler, Arclight, Harpoon, and Vertigo. Future retcons also play Sabretooth and Gambit at the scene, but they are not depicted here in the original run. Their tactics, they're brutally effective. Riptide is the crowd control. Scrambler nullifies any Morlock powers that try to get in their way. For example, one of them is invulnerable, and he just stands in front like a shield. Well, nope, touches him. Now he's dead just like the rest of them. Arclight and Harpoon stop those who try to get away. Arclight with her seismic waves, and Harpoon with his energy spear. Vertigo disrupts enemy formations, later on preventing the X-Men from ganging up on them. And last but not least, Grey Crow delivers the kill shots. On and on and on, the body count rises. Doesn't matter who it is. It's brutal. Here's a quote. "Please, do what you like to me, but spare these children. They've done nothing. They were born. That's enough. Wrong plea, old lady. To the wrong man. Didn't work months ago when I nailed a quartet of Morlock brats on the surface. Won't work now. Blam." Brutal stuff.
Yep.
And this is not your average, Saturday morning cartoon. Eventually, the X-Men show up and the fight intensifies. Angel is pinned to a wall by the Harpoon, and will later have to have his wings amputated after they become gangrene. Side note, this leads to him getting replacement wings from Apocalypse and becoming Archangel, but that's a story for another day.
Yes.
Shadowcat saves Rogue by taking a hit from the energy spear and ends up stuck in her phased form. Nightcrawler and Colossus are critically injured by Riptide, though Colossus is able to save off the bleeding by staying in his armored form for a while. And on the Marauder side, Scrambler is nullified after trying to use his powers against Rogue, and Colossus snaps Riptide's neck. Yes, soft-hearted Colossus sees what he did to Nightcrawler and just cracks his neck. Of the of the Morlocks, only a handful survive. Those that do, they're all injured, except maybe one or two, and they are kept safe in a makeshift hospital in the mansion's basement. So while the X-Men are busy scrounging through the sewers looking for survivors, Sabretooth infiltrates the mansion to finish the job. He was almost successful, but a young Psylocke kept him busy long enough for Wolverine to return and fight Sabretooth off. So with half the team down for the count, the X-Men are finding it difficult to put a stop to the Marauders while simultaneously guarding the mansion.
Uh-huh.
But wait, there's more, because Dazzler's gone berserk. Yes,
Taylor
if you'll
Swift?
remember. Yes, Taylor Swift has gone berserk because the Marauders had two operations going in parallel. We had the Strike Force massacring the Morlocks, and a plan to take the X-Men out of the picture. Malice possesses Dazzler, goes crazy to lure the X-Men into a fight where Malice could then jump from body to body, jumping into progressively stronger individuals, tries to take Storm. Storm's will, something, fights her off, whatever. But she gets them to fight against each other. And, I discussed this earlier, how I felt
I love when you get dismissive like that. Usually you say time stuff, but this is funny.
It's
whatever.
This fight missed the mark for me. I'm sorry it did. They could have done so much better.
Right.
I think part of the problem with Malice is it's so fast. Like, it would have been a great storyline that took us several issues, right? Where they had time to draw that out, and then instead it sort of like all happens in like 3 pages, right? It's like, oh, okay. And there's a whole choker.
And when the heroes are fighting against each other, they don't bring out their inner tensions with each other. That would have really done it.
Right.
So the point is, Malice was sent to disrupt the X-Men, and it worked. So imagine that did happen. Yeah, they're kind of distrustful of each other at this point. So from here on, the story goes on and turns into other storylines. The key thing to remember is that the Marauders succeeded in neutralizing the two big mutant threats in the city, the X-Men and the Morlocks. And the question is, why?
Why?
And we get the answer from Psylocke, who was able to read Sabretooth's mind while he was busy brawling with Wolverine earlier at the mansion. And the mastermind behind all of this was, can I get a drum roll? Thank you. Sinister. See, initially, Sinister's motivation was that he had big plans in motion and that he assembled the Marauders to take out those with the power to resist him. Later on, the writers would create a deeper connection between Sinister and the Morlocks. See, Sinister is a master of genetic manipulation, and the Dark Beast, who is from another dimension, and had learned those techniques from his Mr. Sinister, is now in Earth 616, and Dark Beast creates the Morlocks.
Oh.
So
they're not like just mutants whose manifestations of mutantness make them funny looking and stuff? Like they were actually made things?
I believe this was a retcon, and I don't know if this retcon was itself retconned.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good. All right.
In one of the storylines. Okay.
Yeah. So like initially this was not the case, but eventually, it turns out, the Dark Beast had a hand in making these. And the 616 Sinister was not involved in this, but he recognizes his own handiwork and also notices that it's not quite his handiwork. There are screw-ups here. These are flawed experiments. So he initiates the massacre, in part to cleanse away the failures, purify the mutant population, and in part to hide his techniques from the rest of the world.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Cover up.
Yeah, it's cover up. Now, there's one last thread to tie in here, and that's Gambit. Gambit's dark past is revealed in Uncanny X-Men number 350, published in 1997. So, in summary, the Morlock Massacre was all Gambit's fault, and the X-Men would never had known if it weren't for the heroic intervention of Magneto. The end.
Awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, that's great.
There's a lot going on there. All right.
Well, Mike, that was great. Morlock
Mike.
Massacre. Yes.
Yep, great and disturbing and weird and okay, but yeah, all Gambit's fault.
We knew it. We knew those X-Men were up to no good, and we have been saying it all along.
All right, shall we talk about the cards in this scenario?
Yes, let's do it. Okay, so this is the first scenario in the next evolution box. It uses the Marauder villains. You can go back and listen to those 5 shows. It uses the Mutant Slayers modular. You can go back and listen to those shows. And military grade. You can go back and listen to the Pawn Star show. It has.
We really set this up pretty well.
Yes, like we planned it. This set has 19 total cards, 13 by title, with 5 setup cards that we'll talk about tonight.
Okay.
All right, so we've got our first main scheme, and Mike, seems like you should tell us all about it.
Yeah, since there's no villain, I guess I'll just move on to the main scheme.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
It's main scheme 1A.
Oh. Awesome.
So we have
Funny.
some setup. As you mentioned, we have military grade and the mutant slayers. And it has the setup text, put the routed environment into play, set the hide treachery and each Morlock ally aside, shuffle the villains together without looking to create the villain deck. The top card of this deck is in play. So there's always one villain in play at a time, but it's random who you're going to get.
Yeah, this is the weird. It's not a multi-villain. It's like a serial villain or something. You get a different one each time in a different order instead of facing like Sinister Six all at once. You go through 3 of them and in different order. It's cool.
You flip this over to side 1B, and it has 6 threat per player. Begins with 1 per player, goes up by 1 per player per round. With a forced response, after resolving step 1 of the villain phase, place 1 knock counter here. And then if there are at least 3 knock counters here, advance to stage 2A. And if there are 3 villains under routed, the players win the game.
Okay. I like the art here. I like the really kind of bored Vertigo, like waiting it out for a blockbuster to.
Oh, the board.
Grey Crow.
Grey Crow.
No. On the 1A, you can actually see Vertigo.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, you're right.
And she's kind of bored, like waiting for this. And that's one incredibly accentuated butt crack.
You and the groin area of these villains, Daniel, come on now.
Blockbuster needs a diaper.
It's got pants. The dude has pants.
But they're like yoga pants. They're too tight or something. If that's anyway, I love Vertigo in that art. Thanks,
Yep.
great.
Yep.
Because she disappears when you flip the card over.
Wow.
Anyway,
Okay, so stage 1B is in play for 3 rounds. That's
right.
it. Like
That's
maximum.
it, yeah.
There's no way to remove knock counters as far as I know.
Nope, no way. And the heroes benefit by allowing the scheme to advance through the knock counters. So if the villains can scheme it out, it's better for us because you still advance to 2A. And let's talk about 2A then, shall we?
Okay.
Okay, so 2A is the Mutant Massacre main scheme. When revealed, each player puts 1 set-aside Morlock ally into play under their control, 2 set-aside Morlock allies instead if this is a single-player game. Shuffle the hide treachery into the encounter deck. If the previous stage was advanced by knock counters, give each Morlock ally a tough status card. So there's that. Side 2B is the Mutant Massacre. It starts at 0 threat, goes up by 1 per player, and tops out at 8 per player. With the action, exhaust a Morlock ally. Arrow. Shuffle hide from the encounter discard pile into the encounter deck. If there are 3 villains under Marauder, the players win the game. If this stage is completed or there are no Morlock allies in play, the players lose the game.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so there's our win condition. Heroes want to defeat 3 villains, want to complete stage 2, which would be completing the Mutant Massacre, or they simply want to knock out all the Morlock allies that are in play. Which is between 2 and 4, right? So
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, Daniel, do you want to tell us what a Morlock is?
I'm so glad you asked. A Morlock is an ally with 1 thwart, 1 attack. The Morlock and mutant traits, the 5 health, victory -1. Does not count against your ally limit. Card abilities cannot remove this ally from play. Force interrupt. When an enemy attacks you, it attacks a Morlock you control instead.
Yeah.
So that's why all of our Marauder villains say when they attack you or an ally you control.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so you essentially become one of the Morlock's allies jumping in front of the attack, right?
Yeah. So if a villain attacks you or a minion attacks, if a villain or minion attacks, they go after the Morlock. And if you don't defend, the Morlock just straight up takes that damage.
Yeah.
And they only have 5 health. They might have a tough status card. They might not. So you have to take a defense action, either basic defense or a defense card, like you would use to defend for someone across the table to protect your Morlock.
Yeah.
So that it's coming after your hero instead of this Morlock.
Yeah. Now, don't worry. Even though you can't remove this ally from play with card effects, you can still damage them with your own card effects. For example, you can still get rid of your Morlocks by using Clarity of Purpose on them.
Awesome. You could also just thwart an attack with them because they have 1 consequential damage when they use their abilities.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Yep.
But this one gives you money.
Yeah. You could just sacrifice them. Boy, what are you, an X-Man?
Mike, can you walk me through why Clarity of Purpose gets rid of them? Is that not a card ability?
But Clarity of Purpose doesn't say discard. It says exhaust this card and deal a damage to the attached character to generate a resource. So technically that card isn't discarding it. The damage is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's being defeated by damage.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and Morlocks can have attachments. You can target them with first aid, right? Heroes can do whatever they want to do to this ally to try to beef it up, right? They can make it a honorary Avenger if they want to give it more health, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
All right. The other card that keeps getting mentioned in this setup is Hide, which is a treachery, I guess, because they don't have another type, but it has Surge. So yeah, sure, it's a treachery with Surge, but it does something good for the heroes. It says when revealed, give 1 Morlock ally a tough status card. And it has no boost icons, but it has the special boost. Give 1 Morlock ally a tough status card. Give the villain 1 additional boost card for this activation. Which, yeah.
This is how you're going to help keep the Morlock in play. They get the tough, so you don't have to defend for them every single turn. You can let them take it on the tough, unless the villain has piercing.
Yeah, I was going to say there's not enough piercing in this set.
It's like Harpoon, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So timing-wise, let's say I have a Morlock. The villain attacks me. I don't defend, so they're attacking the Morlock, right?
Yep.
This is the boost card that comes up.
This is immediate.
Right?
It immediately gives you a tough status card.
It's tough. So I really lucked out on this one.
Yes, you did.
Because they get another additional boost card. Okay.
Yeah, that way it's sort of like a Surge, right? It replaces the boost, so the villain should get some boost icons or boost effect beyond this. Sure. Now, this Hide card is mentioned up on the side 2A, right? You can exhaust your Morlock ally to shuffle the Hide from the discard pile into the encounter deck. Every time the Hide comes up, the next turn, the heroes are exhausting a Morlock ally, which doesn't do them any damage or anything, and you're going to shuffle the Hide back in, which is going to benefit the Morlocks.
Which is hilarious thematically, because then the Morlock, every turn, he's just, Hide, gotta go find something. Oh my gosh, they blew up the garbage can I was hiding in front of. Hide. Oh no, they blew up the brick wall. Hide.
That's good. Now, we played this at Con of Heroes, and we talked about this in the recap issue, where we had to kill 70. The convention was defeat 70 or something Marauders. It was 10 for each
10
Marauder.
Per group, or no?
It was 10. It was 10 of each Marauder villain.
10 of each Marauder. That's right.
Before 40 Morlocks got defeated. And in the end, only 2 Morlocks were defeated, or something ridiculously low number.
And they're all from the same table.
Yeah. It was so the Morlocks have a good chance to survive this, is what we've discovered.
Especially in not expert.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, there's one more card to talk about, but I want to keep talking about
Yeah.
Morlocks. I use the Morlock. Like, I will thwart or attack with the Morlock, knock a tough off, remove one final threat from a side scheme.
Oh,
Do you
sure.
guys use the Morlocks, or do you not want it to take damage?
I would use them.
Okay.
I mean, only if I knew I had a defense for them.
Right.
Hey, I guess an ally can't defend for them, right?
And now I can.
Okay.
Okay.
As long as you declare any defender, you can.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, why not use them?
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing: if a Morlock ends the scenario with 2 hit points, like more than 1 hit point left, you didn't use them well.
Oh, I got what you're saying. Yep.
You know what I mean? Like damage is like a currency. It's a commodity you can play with.
It's just like you treat our minions. Use them up until the last possible.
That's
piece of
right. I
energy is
mean,
left. Yeah.
that's 2 thwart, 2 attack that you didn't use in the game, or what, you know what I mean? So
Sure.
you got 5 points. You got 4 free ones to deal with, as long as you can keep them defended. Now, sadly, I imagine this scenario has ways of directly hurting them, so that could be a scary way of going about things. But
one important rule to remember is if you defend the Morlock with an ally and there's overkill, the overkill goes towards the
Morlock.
identity. The identity.
Oh,
always
really?
Always takes the overkill.
Interesting. Even though the Morlock's the original target. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, there's one card left.
Yeah, Steve, how do you win this again? It says something about 3 villains under routed. What does that
Oh,
even
you win
mean?
this by defeating all the Morlocks in play, but I'll tell you what the heroes are trying to do.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Routed is a double-sided environment card, so it has a standard side and an expert side, just like the villains have an A and a B. So on the standard mode only side, it says cards under here are not in play. Forced response: after the villain is defeated, put it under here. Discard each minion that shares a title with the top villain of the villain deck. That villain is in play. The villain activates against each player in player order. All right, let's read 2 and then we'll talk about it. So the other side is for expert. It says cards under here are not in play. The villain gains retaliate 1 for each card under here. With the force, each. So it builds. Force response: after the villain is defeated, put it under here. Discard each minion that shares a title with the top villain of the villain deck. That villain is in play. The villain activates against each player in player order. So that force response is the same on either side. It's really adding the retaliate. So what happens is Harpoon is the villain that is out. Cyclops knocks out Harpoon. Harpoon is tucked underneath Routed. A new villain is on the top of the villain deck, and it is Chimera. So you look and say, is there a Chimera minion in play at the same time? And if there is, she gets discarded because the villain takes precedence. Then Chimera activates against each player in player order. So Chimera will attack her scheme right after she shows up. So she sort of gives her quick strike.
I love punishing heroes for doing well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best thing ever. This is
especially since if they've spent all their resources and exhausted to do this, it's just the Morlock that has to take it.
At County Heroes, the most fascinating part of this scenario is as a group of people deciding to not defeat a villain.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That is the weirdest thing about this scenario. Like, we're all like, actually, if we beat him now, that's disastrous. Right? Like, we have to time it where the first person can do it, and like then and it's crazy because you just got 2 villain turns, right?
Yeah.
In a row, basically. And it really messes with the timing and the psychology of being a hero. Like, it's great. And so these folks stay out longer than they normally would. Almost always, I think. I mean, like,
you're trying to game, right? People are trying to game it. They're
trying to game it.
Let's knock them down to 1 so that next turn I can, hit them with a clobber. We're all ready to defend, and then we can work in on the next one.
Right. Yeah. Oh, it's so good. No, it's an interesting thing, like, to see that happen, like in that, you're playing with new players and stuff, and they're saying we can't beat this guy now, and you're like, what? But yeah, love it. Love the scenario.
Yeah, this one's a lot of fun.
Okay, so that is our lore about the Mutant Massacre, or in our game called the Morlock Siege. This is, we've we haven't talked specifically about Morlocks, but I guess we have. And we've looked at all the setup cards and that. So next week, we're going to talk all about the rest of the encounter sets. I think we are good to move on, gentlemen. Mike, if our listeners know a Morlock, how will they tell us about where they're hiding?
Ooh, yes. Well, yes. I hope you're enjoying this mega conglomerate of Marauders that we got going on. If you want to tell us where the Morlocks are hiding, you can email us at criticalencounterspod@gmail.com. We are Critical Encounters on Facebook, and you can find our YouTube, Twitch, or Patreon channels by searching for Critical Encounters Podcast. And on Discord, we are Vardane, Big Foam Loaf, and Marauder 2. If you like our show, tell your friends. If you don't like our show, tell your enemies. Minion, take us out.
A single candle will light his way, and we, the colony once named Morlocks, will never sup, nor sleep, nor scurry in darkness again.